Hi, you are watching West Bloomfield 911. I'm your host, Tim Shepard, and on behalf of Chief Michael Patton and Deputy Chief Kurt Lawson and my brothers and sisters in blue, I'd like to welcome you all to the show. Joining me today is Steve Kaplan, West Bloomfield Township Supervisor. And Supervisor Kaplan, thank you very much for coming in today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Officer Shepard.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And again, I know you have a busy schedule, so coming over here means a lot to the community, and we're glad you're here.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Great. So today we're going to talk about a few different things. In terms of and we're going to jump right into it. And in terms of our local government, traditionally, I think most people think of local government as a mayor, a city council, and that's like kind of your traditional concept of what a local government would be. The township's a little different. Can you explain to me what supervisor is and how the whole political environment works here in the township?
Townships developed in the 1800s, 1805, President Jefferson proposed the idea of townships for unincorporated areas. Okay. And a township generally is 6 square miles by 6 square miles, 36 square miles. But most importantly for our residents, it's a different form of government. In a city, as you know, you'll have a mayor and you'll have a city council, and either the mayor, the city council, or a combination will select a city manager. Okay. And the city manager, then unelected, is responsible for the day-to-day operations of a city. In a township, there are 3 full-time elected officials, a supervisor, a clerk, and a treasurer. And then there are 4 township trustees. So the main difference here is the full-time elected officials serve in the capacity of like a city manager. Okay. It's like a township manager position. Okay.
That makes sense. And as far as the supervisor position, how did you get involved in that? How did you decide that you wanted to go into that position? And when you did decide, how did you get into that position?
Well, Officer Shepard, I had the honor of serving as a township trustee in West Bloomfield. I was elected to 3 4-year terms. And then in 2016, when the former supervisor decided not to seek re-election, I ran and I prevailed in the election. Okay. And I'm really enjoying the position. It's an honor to hold this position.
I would think it would be as well. And as far as being elected, so is that an every 4-year thing? Is it kind of like the government in terms of the federal government system, or what's the term of a supervisor?
All 7 township board members, the 3 full-time officials and the 4 trustees, serve 4-year terms. And we run every 4 years, of course, and it would be during a presidential election. Okay, so that's our great. Next election is 2020.
2020, okay, so you had another year to go until the next election. And when it came to deciding that you wanted to do that, are you a township resident, or do you have to be a township resident in order to become the township supervisor? How did you decide to go and put that as something that you wanted to serve the community with?
Well, I've been involved in public service since 1981. I worked for judges at 3 levels of the judicial system: the Oakland Circuit Court, the Michigan Court of Appeals, and the United States District Court. Okay, wow. And then I served 8 years as a school board trustee in Southfield Public Schools, and then 12 years here as township trustee. But I really enjoy public service. In my view, and of course the rest of the board, we view our residents and businesses, they're our consumers, they're our customers. We're here to serve them. Okay. We're not doing them a favor when they appear at town hall needing a permit, a tax bill, or a challenge of a property assessment. We're here to assist them, make them comfortable, treat them with the utmost respect.
Okay, and I mean, obviously we work together. Some people may not understand the relationship between the different departments and the supervisor himself or herself, whoever would be the supervisor at the time. But how is that system, how is that related? How is the police related to the township? How is, like, say, Parks and Rec? How is that all under one umbrella? And how is that, how do you serve?
Good question. In West Bloomfield, the library system and the Parks Commission, they're separate forms of government, and they elect their own officials. And that occurred in about 1970. In many townships, the Parks and Recreation Commission and the library fall under the city, or perhaps a township, but here they're separate forms of government. So the clerk's department has approximately 12 employees, including finance employees, and Debbie Binder serves as our clerk. So as the elected official, that's her territory. She doesn't report to me, and her staff doesn't report to me. Furthermore, the treasurer, Terry Weingarten, I believe, has 8 individuals serving under her.
Okay.
The township supervisor then has all department heads, including police chief and fire chief, reporting to him or her, reporting to the supervisor. So we have, I think, 9 department heads, 3 department managers, and the fire chief and police chief. But so even though the supervisor is the direct supervisor of the department heads and the police chief and fire chief, it really is a team effort, because we hold township meetings, Officer Shepard, twice per month.
Okay.
And it's the full board that decides the policy. So for example, we might have a policy where we're very limiting in terms of locations of massage parlors. We might not want tattoo parlors. We might want certain developments in one area and not in another area. So that's not the township supervisor making these decisions. It's the town board. It's very collective.
Okay, and the supervisor is on that board, though, correct?
Yes. Well, the supervisor does preside over the meetings and has 1 vote out of 7, which is contrary to maybe a city where the mayor will have veto power but might not vote. But the township supervisor does not have superpowers in terms of that. We're all equal. We all vote.
Right. Now, that's interesting. And, you know, that's, I mean, obviously with the democratic process, I think that's a great indicator of how the community is run, right? I mean, it's fair for, you have a diverse board, and I think there's different, people have different things that they want to push ahead with in the township. And obviously with the board, everyone has a vote. So if someone doesn't like the idea, they can talk to the person, try to talk them into it, and work the political end of it. And it's a great concept. And I think, I mean, you said 1805 it started, or 1809?
And so Michigan, West Bloomfield, interestingly, became incorporated as a township in 1833 before Michigan became a state in 1837.
Oh, no kidding. That is interesting.
We just celebrated our 185th year as a township.
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's believable, but it's great, right? I mean, it's a huge number, and especially.
May I mention, sorry to interject, but just to give you an idea, our township board members, we all arrive here with different backgrounds, but we all have skills. We have a nurse on, the Trustee Swimmer is a nurse. Trustee Warshay is an IT specialist and also a lawyer. Trustee Rosenberg is a chiropractor. Trustee Manna is a real estate broker. And then the treasurer, the clerk, and I all had different careers, of course, before arriving here. So we believe we provide collective experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's wonderful, and that brings so much to the table for the community, right? So they can represent not only their religion or diversity or wherever they come from, but the different levels of like socioeconomic areas and different jobs and different, I mean, we all have things that I think we try to, are important to us individually.
Yes.
And I think, and when you lead in, as a person that's civil service, be it police, supervisor, you have to think outside of yourself, right? And you have to think about the rest of the population. And I know that as working with you in the last few years, that you're an incredible leader and you've done a great job in this township. And I just want people to know that what you are creative, imaginative. You're a wonderful person to meet with and talk with, accessible to everyone. And I think you've done a great job. And in terms of how you feel about this position, and I mean, this is something that obviously you had a different career, and this is a full-time position, am I correct?
It is.
Okay, full-time paid position. This is not something that you do part-time. You're involved on a day-to-day basis, and people can reach you over at the township. Is that, how do people contact you and things like that?
We're available, sure. The 3 full-time officials, treasurer, clerk, and supervisor, we're at our desk, we're there, we're easy to reach. All of us have our phone numbers, cell phone numbers available to the public. So we're there, and no matter is unimportant. A resident once asked me, what is the most important matter you deal with as an elected official in West Bloomfield? And I responded to her, everything is important. Garbage wasn't picked up one day for a resident, a pothole in a road, maybe a tax bill arriving late through no fault of anybody. That's extremely important to the resident.
Sure.
We don't take the position that, why don't you worry about something important, it's negligible. No, that issue is the most important issue at that moment. And if we as a township board can resolve it and satisfy the resident, it's not that he's going to reach nirvana, but it means that maybe he or she will have a slightly better day, will feel better about government, because you try to reach government in many areas, especially at the higher levels, the county, state, federal, you can't find somebody.
Sure.
Nobody answers the phone.
Right.
Well, we do answer the phone at Town Hall.
Well, I actually know that you actually answer your phone a lot of times. I know that you have a wonderful assistant who helps you as well, but I know that you're very accessible just from being in contact with you and working. And you know, I think that's wonderful in terms of, like you said, with different levels of government, it's hard to get in contact. And like you said, say you have a problem that you need answered. And to me, my problem is my number one problem, right? And that's
Yes.
how I think a lot of us think in terms of our lives, because not that we're self-absorbed, I think it's just that it's your world. And so being a representative of the community, I think that you have to think outside yourself. And I think that's important quality to have, because you can't be a selfish person and try to run for any kind of civil service type position.
And not to sound like a commercial, but our department heads, I can't say they're better than anyone in Michigan or in the world, but these are high quality individuals with fabulous backgrounds. And we take our role seriously as a township board when we select department heads.
Okay.
And the point is, Tim, if you're a resident, you call Town Hall, you have an issue about a fallen tree or about a swimming pool or about water dripping from your neighbor's house and creating an ice bank in front of your mailbox, we know whom to ask, and that is the department heads. They're a wonderful source of information.
That's amazing. And speaking as far as backgrounds, we're going to take a quick break, and I want to go back. I want to go into your background a little bit and how you became where you're at now. So we are going to take a short break and return with more West Bloomfield 911.
The West Bloomfield Police Foundation raises money to help those who protect and serve the community. Whether it's emotional or financial support, the foundation provides a helping hand to officers, their families, and those in the community. For more information on the West Bloomfield Police Foundation, contact Kurt Lawson at 248-975-8900 or visit wbpolicefoundation.org.
Hello. I'm Lisa Brown, Oakland County Clerk, Register of Deeds. You know to check your credit report, but when's the last time you checked the title to your property? Most likely your home is your biggest financial investment, and deed fraud is on the rise across the whole country. Oakland County is no exception. That's why I worked with Xerox and Google to create our property records notification system. Property Records Notification alerts property owners about potentially fraudulent activity, such as forged deeds and bogus liens. This free service, which is the first of its kind in the United States, makes it possible to receive up-to-date information about a property, making it much more difficult for fraudsters to go undetected. To sign up for our free notification system, please visit ocmideeds.com.
Welcome back to West Bloomfield 911. Again, I am Tim Shepard, your host, and I am with West Bloomfield Township Supervisor Steve Kaplan. And Supervisor Kaplan, again, thank you.
Thank you,
taking the
Officer
time.
Shepard.
And so we're going to jump right back into it. And you know, in our first segment, we talked about a lot about what the supervisor does, our form of government here in the township. And I think this wonderful information for our residents. Now, I want to kind of go into your background a little bit, if you don't mind, and talk about how you decided to become the supervisor, what your path was. So let's start with, I'm assuming you're married and you have kids. Are you?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm married to Lisa, a social worker. She's active in the community.
Okay.
We have two daughters, ages 25 and 28. Both graduated from West Bloomfield High School.
Oh, nice.
One is a social worker and the other is a college administrator. And the good news is my daughters resemble my wife.
That's wonderful. So as far as your family, you know, that's wonderful. Your family obviously has taken civil service to heart. And I know Lisa, Mrs. Kaplan, and I know that she is dedicated to the community as well. And we'll be talking to her in a segment coming up shortly. But, you know, with your kids going into similar type things, you said one's a social worker
Yes.
and one is in a college
Administrator.
College administrator. So, I mean, your family has given a lot to the community. It's wonderful. And now, with your background, your education, now I know you're a lawyer, so can you tell me a little bit about how you got into law, why you got into law, what drove you to decide to go that path?
Well, my father owned a business, a hardware store, and I worked in his business during high school and college. And then I decided to attend law school. And my goal was to have a law degree and continue working in the hardware store business. But then I had an opportunity. A gentleman serving as a circuit court judge asked me to serve as his law clerk full time. So I was Judge Kaufman's law clerk and then Judge LaPlata's law clerk at Oakland Circuit Court. And after that, I worked at the Michigan Court of Appeals for a judge, and after that for a federal judge. And then I was hired as an assistant prosecuting attorney in Macomb County. I held that job for 24 years. I tried felony cases, many homicide cases, and that was public service in a way because victims of crime need attention. They want to know that the government cares. You need to return their phone calls. You need to help them gain restitution. So that job as assistant prosecutor was one that provided me with insight into what people need. And then I worked for 2 years at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office in the Homicide Division, and now I'm working here full time.
Okay, so are you still practicing law, or how does that?
I can. I have my license, but I don't take any cases because this is a full-time job.
Sure.
And I don't think the public wants the full-time elected officials earning money in another capacity when they should be here working.
Well, that's admirable that you feel that way, because there's no policy that says that, and that's something that I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a policy.
No, there's no policy.
So I think that's very admirable that you are willing to sacrifice, because we all know in terms of a lawyer, obviously there's a lot of opportunities to be financially successful, and not that township supervisor isn't a great job in terms of a lot of things, but I think that it shows self-sacrifice that you're willing to put those things aside, and I think that probably helps you, and I'm talking about the law degree, helps you with your thinking process in a lot of terms for the township, because I think there's probably, now I know we have a township lawyer and things like that, but I think with your background you can also kind of assess things.
There are some minor matters that the township supervisor, if she or he is a lawyer, can deal with without picking up the phone, calling the township lawyer and paying $132 per hour for that information.
Okay. So just that experience alone has helped you in your current capacity.
Many of our issues revolve around legal matters. Now, I'm not the oracle here.
Sure.
But we do, and as you mentioned, we have different lawyers helping the township. They're not full-time. They're contractual. We have a labor attorney. We have misdemeanor lawyers who handle our traffic offenses and misdemeanors in the 48th District Court, and then we have our general counsel. And we think we've done well in selecting these attorneys. None of them have received a raise, an hourly rate for 5 years.
Okay, that's great. And let me ask you this. So obviously you've been in law, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing like 25 years, you said, around that, 25, 30 years?
Yes, prosecutor, 26 years.
Okay. How long have you been the township supervisor? When did you come into this position?
Sure, November 20, 2016. I've served for 28 months.
28 months. And
of a 4-year term.
Okay. And I know that you said in 2020 is going to be an election, and so obviously I work with you, and I appreciate what you've done for my department. And what's your future plans? Do you have any aspirations for something else? What's going on with that?
I've been asked that question about higher office, but I love this job.
Okay.
I think township supervisor is a position where you can truly help people. I don't wear a halo. I'm not an angel.
Sure.
I have as many foibles as anyone watching the show,
Sure.
maybe more. But it's an opportunity to do something to help the community.
Okay.
And even the minor matters that you and I had discussed, they matter to that homeowner.
Sure.
So if the voters will accept me back for another 4 years, I will be a township supervisor beyond 2020, but I have no desire to run for anything else. I think this is the best position.
Well, that's great, and especially in the community where your family is and your family's active. I think that's important that we give back, and I think it is giving back. Obviously, it's a job, but there's a lot of jobs out there that people could take, and I think that it's admirable that you have dedicated your life to the community, not only in your law, right, with the prosecutor, not going into private practice, doing something that's for the community. And I think that's carried over into this position for you. And speaking of the position, When it comes to so I'm going to get into some kind of specifics, but I know there's some new ordinances that have come out, and maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about those. Some of them are obviously law related because I'm an officer, so
Yes.
I'm more in tune with what those are. But like, we know there's a lot of vaping going on and stuff like that now. I know there was an ordinance that was just passed. Can you tell me about that ordinance a little bit in terms of what that was and why we did that?
Sure. Chief Michael Patton is the gentleman instrumental in recommending to the board that we have an anti-vaping ordinance, and we do now.
Okay.
So under the age of 21, a youngster cannot vape or smoke cigarettes
Right.
or through the apparatus until he reaches 21. So it's a health issue.
Okay. And so that ordinance has taken effect. The board passed that.
The board passed that. And we also passed an ordinance recently where we do not allow any marijuana businesses in West Bloomfield.
Okay.
Whether it's a transporter, a dispensary, a testing agency, a grower. It was our 7-0 vote.
7-0,
We
wow,
unanimously, we accept Michigan law that recreational marijuana use is acceptable, is legal for those 21 and older.
Okay.
But we think that most residents do not want marijuana businesses on Haggerty Road or Orchard Lake Road. Sometimes they bring crime. You have holdups, you have carjackings in that area. Many residents don't like the odor of marijuana,
Okay.
and they'd rather have other communities, and there are communities like Walled Lake and Ferndale and Hazel Park who do provide dispensaries. So if
Okay.
somebody needs to buy marijuana, he can visit those areas to do so.
I agree. And I think in terms of our community, I think it is the law now, so that's something that, as an officer, I respect and go for whatever the law says. And I think that our community has stated, and not necessarily with raising their hands, but that they don't want those kind of businesses here. And it's nothing that we are judging them, right? It's that as this is a bedroom community, and I think that we want to keep some of those factors out of the community.
And I'd like to provide you and your colleagues a compliment. We were rated the safest city in Michigan by a nonprofit group, and it varies. Sometimes we're 4, sometimes we're 6, but we've always been in the top 10 in Michigan as a safe municipality. And part of that stems from the proactive work of our police officers. In
Well,
other
thank you.
words, they're trying to prevent crime
Sure.
and determining where crime might occur, as opposed to just sitting behind a desk and answering that call that a crime
Sure.
has just occurred. Our homicide rate, I believe we've had 1 homicide in 7 years, very few carjackings, maybe 2 armed robberies in the last 3 years, both of which were solved very quickly. So as a former assistant prosecutor, I know that when criminals congregate, the felons who are now on parole and probation, or maybe even at the prison, they're not talking about West Bloomfield in terms of its fine environmental features.
Sure.
They're talking about, wait a minute, is that an easy community where to commit a crime? I think the word has traveled that this is a tough area, that our police are very responsive, and if you commit a crime in West Bloomfield, you're likely to be apprehended.
Well, as a representative for the police department sitting with you right now, I definitely appreciate that. And, I think that as a department, we're proactive. Obviously, police work in general is reactive. You get the 911 calls, and our chief and you as a supervisor have all been supportive for our officers to be proactive and go out there and try to make a difference in the community. And I think it's really worked,
Our township board is very proud of public safety, whether paramedics, firefighters, police officers, and we frequently thank them. Thank you. When we see them at board meetings, thank you for what you do, because oftentimes people are not appreciated, but they are appreciated by us.
And it's interesting you say that, because in a lot of communities there's that adversarial type position, not between the elected officials and the police, but with the community. And I can just speak from my experience is that we are appreciated as officers, as elected officials. I think that we all put our work in, and it's important that we say we're out here helping, but when those people come to us and say thank you, it makes you feel good. I know that as a supervisor, you didn't get in this job for thanks and for someone to say, you're doing a great job, Steve. I think you did it because that's the kind of person you are, and you wanted to go out there and make a difference in your community.
I think all 7 of us feel that way, and it's likely the 7 board members will seek re-election. And we are united. We might not agree on every vote, we might not agree on every policy, but we tend to be unanimous in our votes. But even when we're not, when it's over, and the ordinance is passed or not passed, we accept that and we move
Sure.
on. We don't hold grudges against one another, and all
that's
of us are
important.
trying our best.
Yeah, I mean, that's important that, you have that aisle sometimes where there's separate sides, and I've never noticed that in this community. And I just want to, again, thank you for coming out today and taking the time to speak with me and explain to the community what you do, who you are. So thank you again, Supervisor Kaplan, for taking the time today to come out and speak with me. I appreciate it, and I'm sure the community appreciates you coming out and explaining what you do and what's going on with you and with the West Bloomfield Township.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of West Bloomfield 911. You can keep up with the police department by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter and Instagram. You can also sign up for Nixle.com and CrimeMapping.com for the most up-to-date information on the police department. Thank you for watching. Take care.